Meanwhile, Chicago Mayor Lori Lightfoot is linking Chicago's surge in carjackings to the shutdown of schools and remote learning.
A lot of parents went to work during the day thinking their teenagers were logged on for remote learning, only to find something else. And I asked, is there some new market for stolen cars? And unfortunately, the answer was no, that for many of these kids, some of whom had no prior involvement in the criminal justice system, this was pure boredom.
This drew a swift condemnation from the Chicago's teachers union. Of course, they're very sensitive about this because they wanted to keep the schools closed.
And joining me now to discuss some of these issues happening across our nation, President of Every Black Life Matters, Kevin McGary. Kevin, thank you so much for joining us. I saw you already shaking your head there a little as we were playing Lori Lightfoot. Thanks for being with us today.
That was crazy. Yeah, thank you for having me, Bianca. It's a pleasure to be here.
It's a pleasure to have you, sir. I watched your message on YouTube where you're kind of talking about the mission, and you say there's a message at Every Black Life Matters that you especially want to get out here, especially it's Black History Month, and you believe the focus is not where you'd like it to be. Can you share that with our viewers?
Yeah, really the focus is for us to fully support and encourage law enforcement. Unfortunately, when we begin to defund police and when we have all of these radical reforms as it relates to bail, et cetera, it's the Black and the brown communities that are hurt most. Those are the communities that are preyed upon, if you will, by criminals. And we don't have enough law enforcement to actually go after those individuals that precipitate those crimes.
No,
so really the effort should be to refund police, actually fund police at an appropriate level so everyone can be protected. And especially in those highly urbanized communities where we have a tendency to have a little bit more crime than in some of the other areas.
I know, and Kevin, we saw New York Governor Hochul saying that bail reform is not linked to crime. They're looking to push out a lot of police officers who have not been vaccinated. Same thing in Los Angeles, where about 4,000 members of the sheriff's department are going to be let go if they don't get vaccinated. What do you think of those measures there, where people who want to do a job and protect innocent citizens are now not going to be able to because of these vaccine mandates that have been ruled unconstitutional in many places?
Yeah, I think that this is all still part of the plan. I mean, a lot of these people who are overseeing law enforcement in these cities are still producing a defunding type methodology by virtue of a lot of these onerous mandates like vaccine mandates. The reality is we should pay attention to science. The science is pretty clear now. Even the CDC is pretty clear about natural immunity at this point. And I think that instead of us, overstepping and mandating that everybody be vaccinated, we should pay attention to those who may have natural immunity and can still perform the job. That's a lot of people actually fall in that category at this point. And those would be the ones that we should rely on, continue to rely on to provide us services in both our hospitals and in our emergency services and law enforcement.
What I love is you're not afraid to call people out for some of their actions here. We just saw very moving funerals for two of New York City's finest and very emotional outpouring where this sea of blue down Fifth Avenue 2 weeks in a row. And then you have actress Susan Sarandon making comments, which she has since apologized for. But there's so much division, there's so much vitriol, especially aimed at police. But you're not afraid to call people out. Where do you think you can find sort of a common goal for people to say, listen, these are people who are out there fighting for you and they should not be villainized?
Yeah, I think that, we should pay attention to, especially in New York, when we saw that there were officers running, they were heroic in the sense that in some of these areas, once you put on that police uniform, you're a target. So anybody that's willing to put on that uniform and go out in public these days is actually a hero and not somebody that we should, eschew. And so to that degree, we had these two officers run into a home that was a Black African-American mother that was being domestically abused by her son. And that particular individual decided to empty his gun literally in these two police officers. And then BLM's response was, don't start the propaganda. These people are not heroes. These people should be rejected, canceled, et cetera, et cetera. This is the kind of thing that really we should reject. We should reject these organizations that go publicly and tweet such negative, vitriolic, type assertions that law enforcement are not needed, that they're not heroes, and it just adds grief, more grief to the families that are now, having to endure the sudden loss of a family member, and especially in such a heinous way where they're basically ambushed. And so my thought is that we as communities, all communities, should be behind law enforcement, encourage additional law enforcement, so everyone could be at the levels of appropriate levels of protection when these types of instances do occur.
Kevin McGary, the president of Every Black Life Matters, thank you so much for coming on, and we certainly appreciate your opinions today, and we hope that hopefully people are listening to what you have to say. Thank you.
Thanks again for having me. Everyblm.com. God bless you.
God bless you.